Hey there guys, how's it going? We are back with another video. This time we are going to be covering ailments and builds for all of the Valor plates in Godfall. This will be a quick reference guide to the ailments at the beginning of every video, just in case you haven't seen the series or you haven't watched the previous videos, or you're only looking for the video of the one that you're most interested in. So getting started, ailments in Godfall are like elements. So pretty much every damage type, whether if it's physical damage, fire damage, earth damage, water damage, air damage, void damage, which you can see on the screen, has a DOT, or a damage over time effect, a dot as it's called, that deals damage over time as applied as like a status effect. So in other games like Monster Hunter, you would have poison, status, those types of things that deal damage over time. In Godfall, each damage type has its own DOT, which is actually pretty interesting, and that's what we'll be covering for all the Valor plates that are focused around these ailment types. So for physical damage, you have bleed. For fire damage, you have ignite. Earth damage, you have poison. Water damage, you have ice or chill. You have air damage, which does shock or lightning, and void damage, which does curse. So that's what you're looking for. It'll say inflict with a percentage, and that's what we're going to be getting into now. So today we are covering the Valor plate Bulwark. Bulwark is a bleed type focused Valor plate that wants to pretty much bleed out their enemies and deal damage the more that they're bleeding. So he is a kick them while they're down type of Valor plate. What you can get from Bulwark just from playing him, so you make him fairly early at the beginning. You make Phoenix right when you finish the tutorial, and you can make Bulwark next if you choose to when you get the materials. Bulwark, just for playing him, gives you a 10% chance to inflict bleed onto enemies. If you activate his super or his Archon Fury, he will summon 3 physical sentinels. Well, they're kind of like ghost, that will fight alongside you. And his ability during his Archon Fury, his super, is he will increase his bleed to 90%, which plus the 10% that you already get makes it 100% chance to inflict bleed on enemies. And then he will do 100% damage to bleeding enemies. And if you have a weapon that is not physical damage, it will then do physical damage as long as the Archon's Fury is active. So next we have weapons. There are a couple weapons that you can look at. One of them, if you pre-ordered the game, you got the Zero Longsword, which is a legendary longsword that does, I think it's 40 physical damage when you first get it. I've already upgraded mine. And whenever you inflict bleed, it'll shoot out 2 projectiles that deal 156 physical damage to nearby enemies. This early game is really powerful because the moment you inflict bleed on somebody, or you make them bleed where you're attacking an enemy, it will shoot out these 2 projectiles. So it could either hit the enemy that you're still attacking, which will kill them even faster, or it could reach out to the nearby enemies and kill them. Sometimes if they're small enemies, it will kill them instantly. The 156 physical damage seems pretty small, but I think it scales with your overall physical damage. I haven't been able to test that yet, but it seems to do a lot more damage than what it says in text. The game is still early in development. Even though it has released, it's still under development. So don't take these numbers to be permanent, but they're sort of a reference guide. So what else does the Zero Saber do? It has a damage to bleeding enemies effect, and if you fully upgrade it, you have an option to select a 5% chance to inflict bleed onto enemies. Now, if you don't have this weapon from the pre-order, that's okay. There are plenty of other weapons that do bleed damage or inflict bleed. So going through your weapons, you can sort them by rarity, which has always helped me out. Uncommon is where you want to go to first. Uncommon weapons have a set of attributes that help with what you're looking for. So here we go. We have, I don't even know how to say this sword, so forgive me. The chisel, I'm guessing it is, or shy cell. I'm done butchering. I got it around level 7, which is after you finish the tutorial pretty much. This weapon will always have physical damage. It will always be the same. As you can see, I have multiples of the same type. So from level 7 to level 8, level 17, 26, 20, and 29, I still get this weapon every couple times. I think I even upgraded one to legendary for test purposes. But it always comes with physical damage, and it always has a percentage to inflict bleed. So the higher that you go in levels, the higher that it gets to. So right now I have it at +8, and I think around level 50, when you hit the maximum level, it will start to drop with a +10% inflict bleed, hopefully even +11. I haven't gotten to level 50 yet, so we'll leave it at that. Other than that, what other weapons do we have? So let's try to look for some other weapons that do physical damage. We have weak point damage, but that doesn't really help us. Let's see, more fire, water, fire, physical. Okay, so this one has takedown damage, which are like finishers in this game if you're new to Godfall. That's it for uncommon. So as far as uncommons go, you'll always get one that inflicts bleed damage, which helps out Bulwark, because Bulwark wants to inflict bleed damage to then deal extra damage to bleeding enemies, so that way he can, kill enemies faster. He's a DPS. So in rare, what do we have in rare? So as we look through rare, we have a physical type here. This doesn't really help our strategy. We gain 5% weapon technique charge, some critical damage. Like I said, not really ours. Plus this one's kind of random. Let's see, void. This hammer does physical damage, but this one's actually pretty good. It's not guaranteed. As you can see, I have 2 of them and they're both different. So at around level 3, I was able to get one that also has a 5% chance to inflict bleed damage, which is pretty good. So you want to look for weapons that, of course, go with the theme. Here's one. So the Blades of Cruelty, which I got one around level 3 during the tutorial, inflicts bleed whenever you hit an enemy with a polarity attack. And then this one also supports more polarity. So polarity is when you have 2 weapons equipped, your off weapon is going to charge up this meter, so that when you switch weapons, when the meter is full, you're going to do an AoE burst of damage, and then that weapon is going to deal more damage. So if you have this weapon as your secondary weapon, when you switch to it when the meter's full, you're going to do an AoE that's going to deal more damage, right? It's going to do a lot of damage to the enemies around you. And then you're going to get a damage buff. So you're going to do more physical damage, and you're going to have the ability to inflict bleed when you do the polarity attack. So once you do the AoE, the enemies around you are going to start bleeding, which is good. That's what you want to do for Bulwark. That's what you want. So we have a weapon in the rare category. We have a weapon in the common category. And now we're just going to look and see if we have anything else that could be helpful. That doesn't help us. It's a fire weapon, air weapon. Okay, so here we go. Stinger. Stinger is a long sword, which you get varying through the game as well. I have one at level 18, which I have equipped. And then I have one at level 27 and level 14. So we'll go with the level 14 when it's the lowest. So around level 14, I got this rare Stinger. It has a 19% chance to inflict bleed damage when you charge your heavy attack. So just by holding down heavy attack, you'll charge it up. You'll glow red. I'll show you later. And then it has a varying increasing amount of chances to inflict bleed, which is what you want to do. So that's a good weapon to have also, since you can have multiple weapons, and you have the other weapon, which we'll go back to, the dual blades that have the polarity attack. You start to see where you can build up a combo. So you could use the Stinger to, be your opener, to do your charged heavy hits, get a lot of damage in, and then once those dual blades fill up for the polarity attack, do your polarity attack, make everything bleed within the area, and just start going crazy, pretty much Carmella style bloody countess, killing everybody around. All right, so if that's something you're into, I don't really see too many weapons in the epic range that deal with bleeding. It's mostly rare and uncommon weapons. I don't have any that focus on bleed damage in the epic, but I'm pretty sure they're there further in the game. But at least with rare weapons and uncommon weapons, you have options to work with, and you have kind of a combo building up. So that's the good thing about Bulwark. He just wants enemies to bleed so he can deal more damage. So now that we've looked at some weapons, we're going to look at other accessories in his pool to kind of like help us out with this building, getting him to be where we want to as we're leveling up. Okay, so next we have rings. Rings are a good way to help you along your level up and to help you with your build. So again, as we saw with the weapons, with the swords, we have uncommon rings that help us with what we want to do. So here we have an uncommon ring. I'm going to go and see if I have more. But we have an uncommon ring that inflicts bleed damage, which is what we want to do. So we want to increase our bleed chance so we can do as much damage as possible. The earliest I got one was around level 1, level 2. It's required level 2, so I probably got it at around level 1, which it has 26 vitality, which increases your health pool, and then you get a 7% chance to inflict bleed damage. So that's a good way to already get started. So right out of the gate, the game is helping you build towards bleed damage, because that's something that you can work on really quick to help you beat enemies. So you have one ring that does that. And what else do we have? So if we remember, because you get these, they drop multiple times throughout the game. We had another ring that helps us with physical damage. So physical damage will also add to our bleeding total, as we saw earlier in the intro with the elements. Physical damage equals bleed chance. So a ring that helps us with that is this one. I think it's the only one I have, to be honest. The True Strike ring, which gives you plus 15% physical damage, and that will help us make enemies bleed faster. Now, there will be other rings that you can keep in mind later on. If you see something that helps you, that says like deals damage to enemies that are bleeding, or or inflicts bleed, like here we go, the Vermilion Band. Its primary ability is restore 37% health whenever an enemy is taken down. So that's like a finisher. So whenever you hit them with a finisher, you get back 37% of your health. And this one has a random roll of a secondary ability, where this one got plus 25% damage. Oh, that was to ignited enemies. But I have one on another playthrough with bleeding enemies. So like I said, like there are rings that will do that. Those always have stuff like that, like ignited enemies, or bleeding enemies, stuff like that. Takedown damage, stuff like that, like chilled enemies. Those are the rings you want to look for, where they can help you out with your build. Those are more random when they're secondary, but at least you have them as an option. You can upgrade your items at any time. So like even with your weapons, your rings, any of your equipment, you can upgrade. So from that sword we were looking at earlier, the chisel or the chisel, whatever it's called, it was an uncommon weapon that had bleed chance. So this legendary version of it, I made myself. You can go to the forge and you can just enchant it from an uncommon weapon to a legendary weapon. And hopefully on the rolls you'll get lucky enough. I didn't get lucky, but I'll get rid of this one later. Where you can get more bleed damage or, more chances to inflict bleed. So next we have Lifestones and Banners. Lifestones and Banners are something that you have to activate to get the effect of, but they still help you out overall. They don't count towards your overall stats. So when you're looking at the right side where it says attributes and at the bottom it says ailment chance, it's not going to show up there because you have to activate these items in order to get their bonuses. But it's good to keep in mind. So one of them that we have, which goes towards all elements overall, is the Bead of Hardened Aetherium. So this one's at level 15. I have a level 14 one, and the first one I got was around level 7. So what the Bead of Hardened Aetherium does is when you use it, you recover. For this one, you recover 89 points of health. And the primary effect is, so when you use it, you have 10 seconds of this ability. So the primary effect is you get 13% chance to inflict any ailment. So whatever you're working towards or whatever your weapon does, that's what you're going to inflict. For Bulwark, we're inflicting bleed. So this is an extra 13% that we're going to get to inflict bleed damage. So at base, he's already doing 10 without any other equipment. Let's just say even with a basic sword, whenever I heal, I'm going to get an extra 15. So that's putting me at 25. Then you'll get banners. Banners are kind of like support AoE items that help you and your teammates. And they have a plague banner. The plague banner, let me see when the first one is that I got. The first one I got was around level 7. And it gives you overhealth. So overhealth is kind of like a secondary bar of health. Once you kind of like when your health is at max, you get an extra amount of health. So this one, when you activate the banner, while it's going, you have a 21% chance to inflict elements. So bleed, fire, chill, lightning, curse, all that stuff. And then it gives you an extra 39% damage to enemies afflicted by the element. So anyone who has bleed at that point, you'll be doing an extra 39% damage, which is really good. So the one that I have at level 20 gives me 22% chance while active and a 43% damage increase. I'm already doing a lot of damage. I'm melting enemies even on hard difficulty. So those are two items that you have at your disposal to help you out. Another way that you can increase your ailment chance or your bleed is in your skills tree. So in your skills tree, there is an ailments tab, which will increase all ailments by 13 when you have it at level 5. So as you see, I have it at max level 5. And on the ailments that I don't have active, which is ignite, chill, shock, poison, curse, under bleed, they're all at 13%. So I'm getting an extra 13% boost from filling up that ailment tree to level 5. So those are some things you can do that help you out. Other than that, there are a couple other things that can help you with your damage, but not too much. When it comes to bleed, there really isn't that much. You just got to look for items. Like you got to look for stuff with your charms and your amulets that might have it as a secondary skill that can secondary attribute that can help you deal more bleed damage or just deal more damage to enemies that are bleeding. It's still early in the game, so we don't have the ability to craft weapons and items yet on our own, but we can upgrade the ones that we have. So as you're playing through the game from level 1 to level 50, you're going to get a bunch of items that are going to help you improve the game, and you can always upgrade them as long as you have the materials. Getting the materials is pretty easy. All you have to do is really just run around, kill stuff, break vases and boxes and stuff, and you'll be able to upgrade items, and then you'll be able to enchant them to increase their rarity. So even if you started off with the pre-order weapons or not, you still have a good chance to use this character, have fun, kill enemies really fast, and overall just enjoy the game as a whole. Next, we're going to get into a little bit of combat to see how the bleed mechanic works and to see what you're looking for in combat. All right, so here we are in the combat training room, and we have a test dummy here that we're going to inflict bleed on. So we're not going to use anything just yet. We're just going to attack him until he bleeds. Bam. 2 hits. He got hit with the 2 projectiles, and he's getting hit for 28 points of damage as he's bleeding out. So that's a good way to see, like, the zero weapon does help you inflict bleed. And if we switch to the stinger, which gave us a bonus to inflict on heavy attacks. So we're going to hold heavy attack, clash swords, and he's bleeding off of 2 hits. So we're going to do a takedown to finish him off. But as you saw, 2 hits and he was already bleeding. That's what you're looking for. Bam, bam, bleeding already. So even if you don't have the pre-order weapon, you can deal bleed damage very fast early in the game. You just got to put your skill points towards ailment and, work towards the build and what you're trying to do. For every weapon, it's going to be a little bit different, but at least you have things and you have options. Next, I'll show off how big the banner area effect is, if he'll let me. So we're going to put it in the center of the room. And as you can see, this is a pretty big AoE. So going all the way back out here and past the door even is the amount of space that you have. So with that amount, bam, off the first hit, he was already bleeding. So that's the good thing. And then from there, just keep doing more bleed damage. So the banners are a good way to help. They have their own cooldown timer. And as you see in the bottom left hand corner, I have over health, which is another health bar above my health bar. So just for putting it down, I got extra health, which keeps me alive. And if you're playing multiplayer, everybody else who's around when you do it, they're going to get additional health as well. And then we're going to switch back to the Zero Blade. So when playing Bulwark, you're going to have a lot of fun because you're going to see enemies drop really fast. Even bosses are going to drop really fast once you know what you're doing. So activating your Archon's Fury, healing and getting that additional ailment, using your banner, these are all things that can help you on top of what you already have. One thing I like to do is rush in, use the Archon's Fury, go for it, and bam. Like literally just like that. That's how fast I kill it. Bosses. It's pretty quick because the bleed damage stacks with the damage that you're already doing. And then they're on fire. I mean, not on fire. They're bleeding. So you're dealing damage to bleeding enemies at a higher rate. And it just goes by really fast. Or if you want to, when they're doing their whole intro and they're like, rah, rah, roar, yelling at you and stuff, or preparing or doing their buffs. If you don't have your Archon's Fury fully charged, I would still come in with the heavy attacks because it seems like heavy attacks fill up the bleed meter faster. No matter what weapon you're using, bleed and heavy attack seems to be a thing. And a lot of fast weapons have bleed. So like you'll see a lot of long swords and dual blades that have bleed attached to them. There's kind of a theme that's going on in this game, even early on, where certain weapons have certain attributes more than others. But for bleed, like I ran in and hit him and he started bleeding. So have fun with Bulwark. He is a blast. I really love him a lot. If you see anything that says with Rampage is when you just swing. You just keep swinging. There's that red bar at the bottom of the screen. And as you see, that red bar starts to get bigger. So what will happen is the icon will continually grow as you keep hitting the enemy. And it doesn't have to be normal attacks. It can also be heavy attacks. And as you see, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And now it's full. So now it's pulsing. So now you have that red diamond down there. And if you don't attack an enemy for a certain amount of time, it will reset or go. I think after 10 seconds, it goes away naturally. But that's a good way to increase your damage, to get more bleed damage. The more you hit them, the more chances you have of, inflicting bleed. And also you get a cool little graphic where not graphic, but an effect where your sword is red. So as you see, when I do my running attack, my sword is kind of glowing red with lightning. And that's the lightning from the rampage. So rampage can help with ailments as well. I didn't mention that in the Phoenix video because I forgot to say it, but when you're using ailments, rampage also helps, especially if you're using a longsword or a spear, or dual blades. Weapons that have really fast normals is what's really good with rampage. Hammers are really good with rampage if you're using the heavy attacks, which we'll get into later with poison, but those are just some helpful tips that can help you out. And overall, have fun with Bulwark. He's an awesome Valor plate. I personally love him. I can't get enough. And bleed is a fun mechanic to play around. But I hope this helps you guys out. If you're not playing Godfall, I hope this gives you some insight to the game or makes you want to play it. The game is still early. Even after launch, it's still early in its development. So, there are more things to come. It's kind of a work in progress game, but even though it's still early, it's still a fun game and there's lots to do with it. So I'll see you guys in the next guide. Have fun, be safe, and I hope to see you out on the battlefield. Peace.